You're sitting there watching this video on a phone, a laptop, maybe a TV. It feels very simple. You, a screen, a room. But let me ask you a quiet question. Have you ever had a moment where reality itself felt a little off? Maybe you thought of someone and they called seconds later. Maybe you had a dream and a day later that scene played out almost exactly. Maybe you walked into a place you'd never been, yet somehow it felt familiar. You didn't talk about it much. You shrugged it off. You told yourself, coincidence. But a small part of you wondered, what if reality is not what I was taught in school? What if this world is more like a dream than a machine? Today, I want to speak directly to that quiet part of you. The part that has always suspected that consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain, but something far larger, using the brain like a receiver. In this first part, we're going to walk through 3 simple but disturbing ideas. 1, that your everyday world might be a holographic projection. 2, that your brain may already be tuned into a shared field of information. 3, that your emotions and attention are not just mental events, but tiny edits to the code of your reality. And by the end, I'll give you a simple practice you can start today to test, in your own experience, whether your mind is more powerful than you think. Not in an abstract, philosophical way, in a quiet, repeatable way that you can feel. Let's start with the most basic problem. The feeling of being trapped in a solid world. From childhood, most of us were trained into a very simple story. There is a physical universe out there. It runs on fixed laws. You showed up late to the party, inside a fragile body, inside a brain that somehow created a private little you inside your skull. In this story, reality doesn't care what you feel. Stones fall, bodies age, bills arrive. If anything mystical happens, we file it under luck, coincidence, or fantasy. And yet, the weird experiences keep leaking in. You know the feeling when time stretches, like in an accident or a crisis? Seconds feel like minutes. Details sharpen. You perceive more in a short span than you normally do in an hour. Or think of the opposite. You scroll on your phone for a minute, and suddenly an hour is gone. Your clock says one thing. Your inner sense of time says another. If reality were truly a cold, solid machine, why would your inner sense of time be so elastic? Why would your attention bend the experience of minutes and hours without changing a single physical second? Psychology has studied this for years. We know that fear, novelty, or intense focus change the way we track time. Athletes describe it as slow motion. People in near-death situations describe whole lifetimes of memory, flashing through in a single heartbeat. So here's the uncomfortable thought. If your mind can distort your experience of time so dramatically, how much of your normal reality is actually a construction built inside you, and not simply out there? The holographic hint. Let's move from feelings to something more structured. In the late 20th century, some physicists and neuroscientists started noticing something strange in their work. On the physics side, there was the puzzle of quantum entanglement. Take 2 particles that have interacted, separate them by huge distances, and a change in one seems linked to a change in the other instantly. No signal traveling through space, no time delay. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance because it breaks the tidy rule that nothing travels faster than light. On the neuroscience side, researchers studying memory noticed something equally odd. If the brain stored memories in neat little files in specific places, then cutting away parts of the brain should erase specific memories. But often, it didn't work that way. Memories seemed strangely distributed, as if each piece of tissue still carried some version of the whole pattern. To describe these puzzles, some thinkers reached for a new analogy: the hologram. A hologram is not just a flat photo. It's a recording of interference patterns created by light waves. When you shine a laser through that pattern, a three-dimensional image appears in space. Here's the strange part. If you break a holographic plate into smaller pieces, each small shard still contains the whole image, just with less clarity. Information is not stored in one spot. It's spread out. Each part carries the whole. So a simple, eerie thought arose. What if the universe is structured in a similar way? What if the solid world is a projection from a deeper field of patterns? The way a 3D hologram appears from a flat interference pattern? And what if your brain is not a little box that makes consciousness, but a kind of decoding device that reads those patterns and turns them into your personal movie of reality? If that's even partly true, then three things follow. First, separation is not as absolute as it looks. Second, here and there are less important than how tuned you are. Third, information might not need to travel from you to me. It might already exist within a shared field that both of us read. That's a very different universe from the cold, lonely one we were taught in school. You as a standing wave. Let's bring this closer to your body. You're not a rock. You're a moving pattern. Heartbeats, brainwaves, breath cycles, hormonal rhythms, all pulsing at different frequencies. When you relax, your heart rate changes. Your brainwaves slow. Your breath deepens. If someone hooks you up to an EEG or ECG, they literally see you as waves on a screen. Now, picture a pond. Drop one stone, ripples. Drop several stones, those ripples interact, creating complex patterns of peaks and troughs. Your body is like that pond. Thoughts are ripples. Emotions are ripples. External events are ripples. Where they cross, patterns form. Stable patterns, like a standing wave, can hold structure. Your sense of self is one of those standing waves. It feels stable, but it's actually constantly refreshed. By the way, your brain and body fire together. Here's the twist. If reality itself is an ocean of subtle waves, then your personal pattern is not isolated. It's part of a larger interference pattern. When you walk into a room and feel the vibe, on one level, you're just picking up cues, posture, tone, facial expressions. But on another level, your own nervous system is synchronizing with the rhythms in that space. We already know simple examples of this. Put several pendulum clocks on the same wall. At first, they tick out of sync. Come back later, many will have synchronized. They've subtly influenced each other through tiny vibrations in the wall. Human beings do something similar. Heart rates synchronize in choirs. Brainwaves can partly align when two people look into each other's eyes. This isn't mysticism. Labs have measured it. The mystical part is the question that hangs behind it. If our bodies can sync this easily on a physical level, how deep does that synchronization go? Is there a point where my field and your field are not really two things, but one continuous pattern that only seems divided. Because we're looking through narrow senses? The pain of feeling separate. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, nice theory, but how does this help with my actual life? Let's be honest. Most people don't tune into these ideas because they're bored and want a fun theory. They tune in because something hurts. Maybe it's the pain of feeling alone, even when you're surrounded by people. Maybe it's the sense that you're repeating patterns in relationships, in money, in health, as if an invisible script keeps looping. Maybe it's the quiet despair that comes from feeling like a tiny, powerless piece of a huge machine that doesn't care if you exist. If the universe is a dead machine, that despair makes sense. But if reality is more like a shared living hologram, then your experience matters in a very different way. Your recurring patterns are not punishments from outside. They are stable interference patterns inside this field. They keep showing up because something in you keeps vibrating that way. Not as blame, as information. Pain repeats until it is heard. And when it is heard and met with awareness, the pattern can change. This is where the holographic view becomes practical. Because if each part of the hologram contains the whole, then any shift in your pattern, no matter how small, touches the whole field in some way. That means your work on yourself is not just personal. It's also a subtle service. You are not fixing a broken machine. You are tuning a musical instrument that is plugged into a cosmic orchestra. Time, attention, and the gaps. Let's come back to the experience of time stretching and shrinking. From a purely physical standpoint, seconds are seconds. But you've already seen in your own life that your felt time is elastic. Why? One way to look at it is this. Your attention doesn't move in a smooth line. It jumps. Neuroscience has shown that the brain works in discrete cycles. Electrical activity rises and falls in rhythms. Some studies suggest that perception may even be frame-based. In very small intervals, like a mental refresh rate, you don't see those gaps. You experience a continuous world, but something in you might be slipping in and out, like a pendulum crossing a midpoint again and again. Mystical traditions have spoken for centuries about the gap between thoughts, a tiny opening where time seems to soften and a deeper stillness shows through. Maybe you've tasted it in meditation, or in nature, or in those rare moments when your mind simply stops. And for a second, everything feels open, spacious, and strangely familiar. What if those gaps are not empty at all? What if they are the points where your personal movie plugs into the deeper field? If that's true, then one simple skill can change your relationship with reality. Learning to rest your attention closer to that gap, even for a short time. You don't have to disappear into a cave for 30 years. You can start with a very small experiment. A simple experiment with time. I want to give you a practice you can try after this video. Not as proof of anything, but as a way to test how your attention shapes your experience. Here's how it goes. Sit somewhere quiet with a clock that has a second hand, or a digital timer that ticks clearly. First, spend a minute simply watching the seconds pass. Don't force anything. Just get a feel for the rhythm. Then close your eyes. Take a few slow breaths. Let your body soften. Now, without looking at the clock, recreate something pleasant in your mind. Not a fantasy mansion or a big goal. Something simple and real. Walking on a quiet road at sunset. Lying on a warm beach. Sitting in a childhood room where you felt safe. The key is to make it sensory. Feel the temperature on your skin. Hear the sounds. Notice small details like textures or smells. Stay with that scene for what feels like about 30 seconds. Then, without rushing, open your eyes and look at the clock. Two things might surprise you. Sometimes, far more time has passed than you thought. Other times, almost no time has passed, and yet the inner scene felt rich and long. Do this a few times. Switch the kind of scene. Try a calm scene. Then a slightly anxious one, where you recall a stressful moment. You'll probably notice that stressful scenes make time feel sticky and slow, while pleasant scenes let time slide past quietly or compress in strange ways. The point is not to stop the clock. The point is to see with your own experience that what your mind does changes your world more than you think. The outer seconds don't change. The inner sense of time does. That's your first direct hint that your consciousness is not just a passenger. It's a co-author, the emotional field you broadcast. Let's tie this back to the holographic view. If your inner patterns shape your experience of time, they also shape which pieces of reality you tend to notice and attract. Think of days when you woke up irritated. You bumped into the edge of the bed. You spilled coffee. Someone cut you off in traffic. Each event amplified the mood you already had. Were you cursed? Unlucky? Or did your mind, tuned to a certain emotional frequency, lock on to every matching event and ignore the rest? We know from cognitive science that your brain filters out most of the information around you. You only consciously register a tiny fraction. That fraction is heavily influenced by your expectations and mood. If you expect rejection, you notice cold faces. If you feel grateful, you notice small kindnesses. From a holographic viewpoint, your emotional state is like a tuning knob. The field contains endless possibilities, but you tune in to the segment that matches your frequency. Again, this doesn't mean you're guilty. For every hard thing that has happened, life contains randomness. There are bigger patterns we don't see, but it does mean you have far more influence over the texture of your daily reality than you were ever told. And that influence begins not with forced positive thinking, but with quiet awareness of what you are already broadcasting. A first practical step, the daily field check. So, what can you do with all this today? You don't need to memorize theories. You don't need to believe anything blindly. Start with a small daily practice I call a field check. Once or twice a day, pause for 60 seconds. No phone, no distractions. Ask yourself 3 simple questions, gently, as if you're checking the weather inside you. What am I feeling in my body right now? Where is my attention pulled? What story am I quietly telling myself about today? Maybe you notice tightness in your chest, thoughts racing about money, a story that says, "Nothing works out for me." Don't fight it. Don't argue with it. Just see it as clearly as you can, as if you're watching weather patterns on a radar. Then, For the last 20 seconds of that minute, bring to mind one moment from the last 24 hours where you felt even a little bit of peace, affection, or beauty. It could be a smile from a stranger, a ray of light on the floor, a moment of quiet when you made tea. Don't force big gratitude. Just let that small moment fill your awareness. Notice how your body shifts, even slightly. Your breath, your posture, what you're doing in that minute is very simple and very powerful. You're seeing your current pattern without judging it, and then slightly nudging the tuning knob toward a different state. No fireworks, no dramatic manifestation. But if you do this once or twice a day, for a week, something subtle starts to change. You begin to notice different things. You choose slightly different reactions. You respond instead of just reacting. In holographic terms, you're bringing a bit more coherence to your personal field. And coherence, over time, changes the interference pattern of your life. In this first part, we walked through a quiet but radical possibility that your reality is not a fixed, solid block, but a living hologram. That your body and brain are not isolated machines, but resonant instruments plugged into a shared field of information. That your attention and emotion are not just private experiences, but gentle edits to a wider pattern that shapes what you meet each day. You don't have to accept any of this as a belief. You can treat it as a working hypothesis and test it through your own attention, through simple experiments like the time exercise and the daily field check. We'll go deeper into how this view of reality connects to manifestation, synchronicity, and those rare moments when life seems to bend around you. We'll also explore a more complete practice for entering that gap where your personal movie touches the larger field, and how to use that space to align your life with what feels truly right for you. For now, I want to leave you with a gentle question. If, starting today, you treated your thoughts and feelings not as random noise inside a skull, but as signals in a shared field, what is one small shift you would choose to make in the way you think, feel, or pay attention? Hold that question close. Your answer might be the first tiny adjustment in a much larger pattern you can't yet see. Part 2, the field that listens back. Let's pick up right where we left off. By now, you've seen how your attention, emotions, and subtle internal states shape more of your reality than you once believed. But there's a deeper layer to this conversation, a layer that feels almost too strange to say, yet too familiar to ignore. It's the sense that reality sometimes answers you, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but directly. A coincidence that arrives at the perfect moment. A message that appears just when you're debating a decision. A person who shows up with the exact words you needed. A lucky break after weeks of quiet intention. You don't control these moments, but they feel connected to you, not by force, but by coherence. In this second part, we're going to explore how your inner state interacts with the wider holographic field in ways that bend probability, shape outcomes, and bring you into alignment with experiences that match the frequency of your inner world. We'll talk about synchronicity, manifestation, the deeper structure behind desire, and a simple practice to help you step into that quiet gap where your intentions take root, not to manipulate the universe, but to work with it, to tune your inner pattern, so you stop fighting life and start cooperating with the field you're already part of. Let's begin with the one thing everyone has experienced at least once: synchronicity. The strange precision of synchronicity. Have you ever noticed how certain moments feel engineered? As if reality gently rearranged its pieces to meet you halfway? Maybe you were thinking about changing jobs, and the next day an unexpected offer appeared. Maybe you were stuck in grief, and a stranger told you something that felt impossibly tailored to your state of mind. Or maybe a number kept repeating, a name kept showing up, a theme echoed across conversations, as if the outer world was mirroring a shift inside you. We call these synchronicities, but most people brush them off, afraid to sound naive or mystical. But let's strip away the superstition and look at something simple and grounded. Your brain is a pattern detector. Your nervous system is a resonant instrument. And the universe you live in might not be as separate from you as you've been taught. In a holographic model, the line between inside and outside is thinner than it appears. Your conscious mind thinks you're looking out into the world, but your deeper mind is already entangled with it. When your internal state reaches a certain coherence, a mixture of emotional alignment and mental clarity, you begin noticing, attracting, and aligning with events that match that state. Not because you forced anything, but because your field stopped sending mixed signals. And when your field becomes consistent, the world around you starts to feel consistent too. Synchronicity is coherence made visible. It's the outer world rearranging itself to reflect the pattern you're holding inside. Why most people don't manifest what they want. Let's talk about a word that gets thrown around a lot: manifestation. For many people, this word has lost meaning. It's been wrapped in wishful thinking. Repeat after me affirmations and promises of instant outcomes. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your desires don't manifest because of what you want. They manifest because of what you are broadcasting beneath your thoughts. Someone can say, "I want abundance," but underneath, their emotional field says, "I'm afraid there won't be enough." They can say, "I want a loving relationship," while their nervous system quietly whispers, "Love is dangerous. I don't trust it." The holographic field doesn't listen to your words. It listens to your coherence. If your desire and your emotional state are moving in opposite directions, the field receives interference, not clarity. And interference creates delay, contradiction, and confusion. This is why people feel stuck. It's not because they're asking for the wrong things. It's because they're asking while broadcasting a completely different signal. In this model, manifestation is less like commanding reality and more like tuning yourself, so reality can reflect your state without distortion. The hidden structure of desire. There's something important to understand here. Your deepest desires are not random. They're signals, indicators of where your inner pattern wants to move. Desire is a form of communication from the deeper parts of your consciousness. It's not about possessions or achievements. It's about alignment. It's about becoming the version of you that matches the feeling behind the desire. Think about this carefully. When you say you want peace, what you really want is the version of you who exists in peace. When you say you want success, what you really want is the version of you who feels capable, supported, and confident. The outer result is just the echo. The real desire is internal. It's the frequency your field wants to stabilize. If the universe is holographic, then your desires are not commands. They are invitations from your deeper self to tune in to a more coherent state. And once you tune into that state, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. The quiet power of non-resistance. Most people approach manifestation like a struggle. They push. They visualize. They repeat affirmations. They fight old thoughts. But in a holographic field, resistance doesn't create alignment. It creates more resistance. Have you noticed this? The harder you try to feel positive, the louder your inner friction becomes. Why? Because the field is sensitive. It picks up not your intention, but your emotional truth. When you fight your own thoughts, you create interference. When you force an emotion, you create tension. Coherence arises not from control, but from non-resistance, from allowing your inner weather to be exactly what it is, while gently shifting your attention towards states that feel smoother. This is why the most powerful shifts happen in quiet moments, during walks, showers, meditation, or when you finally stop trying so hard. When the mind softens, the field becomes clear. When the field becomes clear, reality responds. When reality starts bending, certain experiences signal that your inner field is becoming more coherent. They often show up gradually. Dreams become more vivid. Intuition becomes sharper. You sense things moments before they happen. You meet the right people without trying. Obstacles dissolve instead of intensifying. It can feel like the world is lining up with you, like something invisible is helping. Not because you are special, but because your internal frequency is no longer contradicting your path. You're no longer fighting the river. You're flowing with it. In these phases, life becomes strangely efficient. What once required force now happens with less effort. This is not magic. It's coherence. A coherent field creates coherent outcomes. And whenever you slip, and you will, it's not a failure. It's simply a shift in pattern. You breathe, realign, and continue. A more advanced practice, entering the gap. Now let's go deeper into the practice that ties all of this together. This is a quiet, internal method you can begin using today. It doesn't control reality. It tunes you, so reality meets you with less resistance. Here's how to do it. Find a comfortable position. Close your eyes. Let your breath settle into a natural rhythm. Start by observing the space in front of your closed eyes. Not your thoughts, not your breath, just the dark inner space. At first, it's just darkness. But stay with it. Within a few seconds, you'll notice that this dark space is not empty. There are subtle flickers, shifts, waves of faint light, the gentle movement of inner imagery. Don't try to interpret anything. Just observe. Let your attention soften. Now, the key step. Begin noticing the tiny pauses between the movements of your mind, between one thought and another, between the shifting shapes behind your eyes, between one breath and the next. There is a brief silence there. So brief, you usually skip over it. Rest your attention in that silence for just a second or two at a time. Not to escape your thoughts, but to meet the place where your inner world touches the deeper field. After a minute or so, bring in a single feeling, connected to something you want, not the image, not the outcome, but the feeling. If it's peace, feel peace. If it's love, feel love. If it's confidence, feel confidence. Let that feeling drift through the inner silence, without forcing anything. Give it space, almost like you're offering it to the field. Then let everything go. No expectation, no measurement, no pressure. This practice does two things. It quiets the interference within your field. It plants a coherent emotional signal in the deeper layers of consciousness that shape your perception and experience. Do this regularly, and you will start noticing small, uncanny shifts in the way life responds to you. Nothing dramatic at first, just smoother paths, better timing, clearer decisions, lighter coincidences. The universe doesn't need grand rituals. It needs coherence, the real secret behind manifestation. Here's the quiet truth that most people ignore. The universe doesn't respond to what you force. It responds to what you are. Not the persona you perform, but the field you carry. When your field is scattered, your reality feels chaotic. When your field is fearful, your world feels threatening. When your field is divided, your life feels blocked. But when your field becomes coherent through presence, non-resistance, and emotional alignment, reality begins to organize itself in surprisingly meaningful ways. You don't need to bend the world. You only need to tune your signal, bringing it all together. Let's simplify everything from both parts into a single flow. You are not a separate observer. You are part of a larger interference pattern, a shared holographic field. Your thoughts, feelings, and attention are not passive events. They are interactions with that field. When your internal pattern is chaotic, life feels chaotic. When your internal pattern becomes coherent, life becomes oddly cooperative. Synchronicity increases. Desires feel closer. Problems loosen. You begin moving along paths that feel natural rather than forced. This is not about belief. It's about tuning. And tuning is a skill, one that grows with gentle practice, not pressure. As we end this two-part journey, I want to speak directly to you, as one human being to another. You are not small. You are not powerless. You are not a random passenger in a mindless universe. You are a living node in a vast field of consciousness. Your inner state matters. Your coherence matters. Your attention matters. Not because you must be perfect, but because every shift you make, even the smallest one, creates ripples in the field that extend far beyond you.